Have you ever felt like success keeps slipping just beyond your grasp? Like you're doing everything right, walking the path with intention, choosing patience over panic, showing up day after day, and yet the breakthrough never seems to land. You watch others rise, sometimes without struggle, and while you cheer them on, deep inside, a quiet voice wonders, when will it be my turn? But what if I told you, your turn isn't missing or lost? It's in motion. It's not being withheld, it's being prepared. Because there are moments in life when the universe isn't ignoring you. It's refining you, not punishing, not delaying, but aligning, sharpening your vision, deepening your energy, sculpting your spirit until the frequency you carry finally matches the life that's waiting for you. And that moment, that precise frequency, is arriving. June 30th, 2025 isn't just another date. It's not just a number on a page. It's the final chord of a 3-day symphony that carries a cosmic signature, a sacred rhythm written not by clocks or calendars, but by something older, something deeper, a blueprint shaped by ancient numerology, encoded through cycles of nature, and carried in whispers through the teachings of Buddhist wisdom. And in that rhythm, 6 numbers rise, not as coincidences, not as lottery picks, but as signals, gateways, mirrors, each one crafted to awaken a part of you that's been dormant, waiting, aching to remember why it came here in the first place. Because in Buddhism, the truth doesn't shout, it arrives in echoes, patterns, signs, synchronicities that repeat until we finally slow down enough to feel them. The numbers are part of that, not magic tricks, not superstition, just alignment. The universe speaking a language it's been trying to teach you all along. And as the final day of June approaches, the energy sharpens. A rare alignment begins to unfold, not outside of you, but around you and through you. It's a bridge from the intention you've been holding in your heart to the answer the universe has already begun shaping in the unseen. So before we begin, take a breath. Let everything else fall away. This isn't just about numbers, it's about readiness, about resonance. Set your intention. Feel it settle deep in your chest. Then, if you're ready, like this video, subscribe to Buddhism Mindset, and anchor this moment with a powerful affirmation in the comments. I am aligned, open, and ready to receive. Because if you stay with me until the very end, I will reveal a 7th number, one kept sacred by monks and mystics for centuries, a number said to unlock transformation, dissolve what no longer serves you, and call in abundance exactly where your soul needs it most. So if you're tired of chasing signs and are finally ready to move and flow with them, let's begin. Number 10, the sacred completion. It begins not with a bang, but with a whisper, a number that has quietly followed you through every phase of your life, often unnoticed, often misunderstood. 10. It appears at the end of a countdown, in the last chapter of a story, as a symbol of closure and conclusion. But to the awakened soul, to those who walk the inner path with stillness, 10 is not an ending. It is the sacred completion, the soft turning of the wheel, the breath where everything comes full circle, and then opens again. In Buddhist philosophy, 10 carries the vibration of wholeness. It is the completion of a karmic loop, the final lesson in a silent curriculum your soul agreed to long before you arrived here. It is not the end of movement, but the pause that reveals its meaning. As we draw near to June 30th, this number begins to glow beneath the surface of things, not loudly, not in spectacle, but in the quiet rhythm of your life, the way your thoughts settle more gently, the way old griefs feel lighter, the way your heart begins to trust something without needing proof. The sacredness of 10 lies not in what it ends, but in what it reveals. It reminds you that all you've walked through, every closed door, every unanswered prayer, every silent stretch of waiting, was part of a deeper pattern unfolding in perfect time. 10 is the moment the pattern completes, and your spirit recognizes it. That recognition doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with stillness, a knowing, a sense of standing at the edge of something vast, not in fear, but in readiness. Think of all the effort you've poured into becoming. The small acts, the private sacrifices, the strength it took to keep going, even when no one clapped. That wasn't wasted. That wasn't forgotten. That was the spiral leading you here, to the vibration of 10, a number that doesn't just mark the end of struggle, but the emergence of form, the seed breaking open after seasons in the dark, the forest finally parting to reveal sky. 10 is not a celebration of arrival. It is the breath before it, the sacred moment where everything inside you softens. Because for once, you don't have to chase what's meant for you. You only have to allow it. It is the moment the soil recognizes the seed has become a tree. When the river realizes it no longer needs to carve, it can simply flow. And in this moment, this frequency, June 30th, becomes more than a date. It becomes a reflection of how far you've come, of how much you've endured, of how silently the universe has been working on your behalf. The number 10 does not knock at your door with urgency. It waits. And when you're ready, it reveals what was always within you. So as this sacred window opens, and the light of 10 settles over everything you've carried, ask yourself not what must end, but what is now complete. Because 10 does not erase, it honors. It gathers every step you've taken and holds it up to the light, so you can finally see the truth. There is a moment when the ordinary turns luminous, when something as simple as sunlight through leaves, or a familiar sound in the distance, suddenly awakens a feeling in you that you can't explain. It's not logic, it's not memory, it's a presence, a stirring. And that presence is the energy of number 3. 3 doesn't tiptoe in. It arrives like a breeze that knows where it's going. Alive, spontaneous, effortless. You might be scrolling your phone, lost in the current of the day, and then suddenly, a word, an image, a sound, it stops you. You look around and feel something shift. That's not coincidence. That's 3, showing itself the only way it knows how, through rhythm, color, expression, movement. In the spiritual language of numbers, 3 is the pulse of creativity. It is not the energy of planning or analyzing. It is the energy of becoming. It moves through art, through music, through laughter, but it also lives in silence, in those deep moments where your thoughts melt and something purer begins to speak. Number 3 is the reminder that you were never meant to be quiet in your soul. You were meant to bring forth something from within, not just to decorate the world, but to bring it back into balance. In Buddhist wisdom, this energy is mirrored through ancient patterns, mind, body, and spirit, not in separation, but in harmony. When 3 is alive in your field, these aspects don't pull against each other, they dance. And through the eightfold path, this number reappears as a deeper alignment, right thought, right speech, right action. Each one flowing from the other, like notes in a melody you've always known, but are just now learning how to play aloud. And it's not always loud. 3 isn't about noise, it's about truth. The kind that spills from your mouth before you can edit it. The kind that shows up in the way your hands move, in the way your eyes pause on something beautiful, in the way your heart quickens when you remember who you are. When 3 begins to rise, you don't become someone else. You become more you, real you, honest you, the one who doesn't wait for approval, because truth doesn't need permission. So if you've been quieting your voice, holding back your vision, shelving your ideas under someday, this is the moment to return, to let it out, to move from holding to offering. The universe, especially now, especially under the energy of this final portal of June, is moving faster, responding quicker, echoing louder. And 3 is the signal that you no longer need to wait. You just need to be. Don't think about performance. Think about expression. Think about what's been sleeping inside you, waiting not for a stage, but for a moment of truth. Maybe it's a story, maybe it's a song, maybe it's a message you haven't said aloud. Whatever it is, it's ready. And number 3 is the breath that carries it forward. So speak, move, sing, write, laugh, create, not for attention, for alignment. And let the current of 3 remind you that your voice, in its raw and unfiltered state, is not too much. It's exactly what the world was missing. There are numbers that feel like whispers, and then there are those that arrive as quiet quakes beneath the surface of your life. You don't always see them coming. They don't flash like signs in the sky, but something inside you shifts when they appear. A heaviness in the chest, a flicker of recognition, a silence that suddenly feels louder than anything around you. And that's the presence of 37, a number that doesn't decorate, it disrupts, not for destruction, but for truth. To the distracted mind, 37 is nothing special. A random figure, a moment on a digital clock, a line on a receipt, a forgotten address. But to the soul that is even slightly awake, even slightly aware of the gap between who they are and who they pretend to be, this number feels like an internal earthquake. It arrives when everything on the outside appears stable, when the calendar is full, the smiles are polite, the routines are steady. But deep underneath it all, something feels off, a silence that shouldn't be there, a weight you can't name, a question that echoes louder the more you try to ignore it. Is this really it? That's not weakness, that's awareness. It is the earliest stage of remembering, not who you should be, but who you already are. The ache you feel in the presence of 37 is not pain without purpose. It is spiritual labor, the beginning of the end of pretending. It is your soul asking for air. And 37, it is the crack in the mask, the fracture in the illusion, the sacred discomfort that begins to dissolve everything false so something real can finally rise. In Buddhism, we are taught that suffering isn't punishment, it's purification. It is the fire that burns away distortion. And 37 doesn't whisper sweet affirmations, it calls you out. It says, enough with the shrinking, enough with the survival, enough with the waiting. It asks you, simply but powerfully, where have you been silent when your voice was needed most? Where have you made yourself smaller just to be accepted by a life that doesn't even see the real you? You've been carrying so much, expectations, obligations, identities you've outgrown. And still, you show up, you smile, you complete the to-do list. But 37 doesn't care about the surface. It cares about what's sacred. It brings with it a mirror that cannot lie, and it places that mirror right in front of your soul, not to shame you, but to wake you. This number doesn't ask for your comfort. It asks for your courage. It asks you to speak, even when your voice is shaking, to admit, even to yourself, that something deeper is calling, that something within you knows this isn't all you came here to be. And maybe, just maybe, you're done pretending you don't feel it. When 37 appears, it doesn't promise ease. It promises truth. And through truth, liberation. It's not here to fix your life. It's here to break the illusions that have been holding you back from actually living it. It is the call into the fire, not to be destroyed, but to be transformed. So if your heart beats harder right now, if your breath catches, if you feel a tightening in your chest, don't run from it. That's the soul's signal. That's the inner yes that's been buried under years of no. That's the earthquake beginning. Quiet at first, but unstoppable. Because 37 doesn't bring the change. It is the moment you stop waiting for it and finally become it. There is a stillness carried by certain numbers, and number 28 is one of them. It doesn't crash into your life or pull you from your path. It simply walks beside you until you're finally quiet enough to feel it. 28 holds the energy of those who have kept going long before the light appeared at the end of the tunnel. It is the number of devotion without reward, consistency without applause, strength without spectacle. You may not have known its name before now, but you've known its vibration. It's in the early mornings when you rise before the sun, in the quiet work you do behind closed doors, in the faith you've carried even when the outcome was uncertain. This number is not loud. It doesn't need to be. Because 28 doesn't speak through drama. It speaks through presence. It's the pulse of the builder, the caretaker, the quiet visionary who creates with intention, not to be seen, but because their soul wouldn't allow anything less. In Buddhist wisdom, this quiet strength is sacred. It is the practice of walking with patience, of planting seeds knowing you may not see them bloom tomorrow, and doing it anyway. Because right action is its own reward. When number 28 begins to rise in your life, it means something you've nurtured in silence is finally beginning to break the surface. Slowly, gently, but undeniably. 2 and 8 come together not by chance, but by design. 2 is the essence of connection, a symbol of sacred partnership, spiritual community, and the recognition that your path was never meant to be walked alone. It reminds you of Sangha, the souls who hold your mirror, who see you when you forget, who walk with you even in silence. 8 carries the ancient frequency of karma, the loop of action, intention, consequence, and flow. It is not just the number of wealth, but of meaningful momentum. Together, 28 weaves a powerful current of alignment. Inner work meeting outer response, discipline finally touching divine timing. This number doesn't promise a sudden shift. It promises a steady unfolding, and it whispers the truth your soul may have been aching to hear. You are not behind. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Every unnoticed effort, every small act of faith, every time you chose integrity over urgency, it counted. It all counted. Number 28 is the quiet confirmation that your time is near, not in flashes of glory, but in grounded arrival. It asks you to pause and see who's still standing beside you, who's still holding your hand even when there's nothing to gain. Because the path of true abundance is never walked alone. And as this number rises through the final days of June, you may notice the shift, not in the world outside, but in the way the world begins to respond to your presence. That's the quiet strength of 28. It doesn't ask for attention. It creates impact without needing to be loud. And when you walk with it fully, with devotion, alignment, and grace, the world eventually catches up to the frequency you've been holding all along. There is a softness to certain numbers, a kind of wisdom that doesn't arrive with thunder or urgency, but with stillness. That's the energy of number 18. It doesn't force itself into your life. It doesn't demand your attention. It enters like a breeze through a half-open window, finding you not in chaos, but in quiet. And in that silence, it begins to speak, not in words, but in feeling, in the subtle ache of something you're ready to release, but haven't yet dared to name. 18 carries the sacred vibration of letting go, not as an act of surrendering in defeat, but as an act of reclaiming your freedom. It is the number that appears when you've carried something too long, a guilt that no longer belongs to you, a belief that has quietly drained your joy, a fear disguised as loyalty, a pattern that once kept you safe, but now keeps you small. And when 18 rises, it brings a moment of clarity, a mirror, not to judge what you've held, but to ask gently, are you ready to lay it down? In Buddhist tradition, transformation is never rushed. It doesn't come through force. It comes through unfolding, through gentle awareness, through compassion. And 18 is exactly that, the unfolding. It is the moment the flower doesn't fight to bloom. It simply trusts the warmth of the light. It's the space between letting go and becoming, where the soul exhales for the first time in years. Imagine your life as a sacred garden. You've planted beautiful things, dreams, hopes, quiet intentions. But over time, other things have taken root too. Self-doubt, outdated roles, pain you absorbed from others, and war like your own. 18 doesn't come to destroy the garden. It comes to clear the weeds. It doesn't bring the storm. It brings the gentle hand, the one that moves through each tangled corner and whispers, "This no longer belongs here." And as each piece is lifted, something hidden begins to breathe again. This number holds deep karmic wisdom, 1 and 8, the self and the eternal. Together, they remind you that clinging is not strength, resistance is not safety, and the soul doesn't evolve by holding on. It evolves by making space. Space for new beginnings, space for grace, space for the self you are finally becoming. So as the end of June approaches and the days grow still, feel the current that moves beneath the surface, soft but undeniable. That's 18, aligning with you, asking nothing but honesty. What are you ready to release? Not because it's broken, not because it failed, but because it's finished. Because the version of you that needed it has outgrown it. This is not abandonment. This is reverence. This is love. And when you release with love, what remains is never emptiness. It is readiness. It is openness. It is the space the universe needs to bring you what was always yours, but could never arrive until your hands were free. And so you breathe, and you trust. And in that breath, number 18 becomes more than a number. It becomes a threshold, a passage, a promise. You are not losing. You are making room to rise. Some moments in life don't come with a warning. They don't knock. They don't flash. They don't roar. They arrive gently, like a quiet breeze that turns your face without you realizing why. That's the presence of number 34, a number that so often passes unnoticed, appearing in ordinary places, the corner of a page, the soft glow of a clock in the early hours. And yet, every time it carries something unmistakable, a shift, a call, a signal that something within you is ready to wake up. 34 doesn't show up in chaos. It shows up in stillness, in the space after a long pause, when the noise begins to fade and something deeper starts to rise. You may have been waiting, not for a miracle, but for clarity. A reason to begin again. A reason to stop circling the same loop. And when this number enters your field, it doesn't shout. It simply whispers, "Now is the time." This is the number that appears when your soul has already decided, but your mind is still negotiating. When your heart is leaning forward, but your feet are still frozen. And 34 becomes the soft bridge between thought and action. It doesn't push. It doesn't demand. It just opens a path and invites you to take one quiet, sacred step. In Buddhist understanding, suffering doesn't come from failure. It comes from resistance, from clinging, from holding too tightly to what has already passed, or gripping a version of yourself that no longer exists. And 34 carries the energy of release. It doesn't tear anything away. It loosens what's already slipping. The fear, the hesitation, the stories you've told yourself about not being ready. It asks, what if readiness isn't required? What if willingness is enough? 3 and 4, together, move in harmony. 3 brings expression, creativity, the boldness to be seen. 4 grounds it, discipline, stability, sacred structure. And when 34 appears, it means your ideas are ready to become real. It's time to build what you've dreamed of, not with pressure, but with presence. You might notice it when standing at a quiet crossroads, when you've outgrown where you are, but haven't yet imagined where you're going. And in that tender in-between space, 34 emerges as a gentle guide, not saying leap, but saying lean, not saying prove, but saying trust. Its message is never loud. It simply asks, what would shift if you stopped holding yourself back? Not because the world is suddenly perfect, not because you've figured it all out, but because a deeper truth has begun to stir, and it's ready to move. And in that quiet stirring, something within you begins to rise, not rushed, not forced, but finally, free. And now, we arrive at the final pulse, the hidden thread that ties everything together, not through logic, but through energy. This is the number spoken of in silence, passed down, not in books, but in breath. a number monks have meditated upon for generations. One seen by mystics, not just in vision, but in alignment. It is not loud, it is not flashy, but its presence shifts something instantly, unmistakably, inside the one who's ready. This is not the number of slow change. This is the number that unlocks. The others have softened you, stretched you, opened the door, but this one walks straight through. It carries the frequency of acceleration, of abundance that flows, not just in spirit, but in form, of healing that doesn't ask for time, only truth, of transformation that doesn't come from effort, but from surrender. Where the others guided you, this one ignites you, but it won't reveal itself in noise. It waits for your stillness, for the space between breath and thought, for the moment you finally stop reaching and start receiving. You will not find it by chasing. You will not catch it in force. It comes only when your field is quiet enough, open enough, trusting enough to feel it approach. And when it does, you'll know. Not because something outside you changes, but because something inside you finally says yes. So breathe. Let all the numbers you've heard settle into place, like keys drop gently into a sacred lock. Let your resistance fall away like smoke. Let your doubt dissolve in the silence, and then feel what rises in its place. That rising, that recognition, is the invitation. And the number, it will meet you there. Because when your readiness meets divine timing, you don't chase what's meant for you. You simply receive it. And now, as the path begins to fade behind us, and this quiet moment reaches its final breath, I ask you, just pause. Not for the words, not for this video, but for yourself. Let your next breath be slower. Let it travel deeper, not just into your chest, but into that soft center within you that so often stays hidden beneath the noise. Let it move into the stillness beneath your thoughts, the part of you that doesn't speak much, but always listens. Because what you've just received was never just information. These weren't facts or figures. These were frequencies, activations, sacred echoes wrapped in numbers, each one arriving not to impress you, but to awaken you, softly, silently, patiently. They didn't come to fix you. They came to remind you you were never broken. You were only buried. Buried under old stories. Buried under hurry. Buried under the idea that you had to become something more when all along you were simply here to become more you. And now, as you step back into your life, you don't have to rush. You don't have to figure it all out. Just walk softer, notice more, breathe more deeply, trust more gently. Carry this quiet into your next conversation, into your next choice, into your own heart. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are not late. You are right on time and more awake than you've been in a long while. Because this journey wasn't about reaching some final answer. It was about returning to yourself, to the peace that never left, to the awareness that was always waiting, to the soft knowing that whispers, even now, you're okay. And maybe that's enough for today. To just feel that, to trust that, and to walk forward, not harder, but lighter. You're not alone. You never were. We are all, in our own way, walking each other home.